Welcome back to Stranded in Pittsburgh on a somber Thursday evening after what we all witnessed last Sunday as the Steelers opened their season against the San Francisco 49ers. We'll talk about that today. We'll talk about their matchup with the Browns, a little backyard brawl preview with our very own Nate Breisinger, who's down there if you're watching. And then we'll talk about the Pirates defying the odds and hitting the over on wins this season. Thank you very much for joining us. My name's Nick Hedrick, and we've had a big uptick in viewers the last couple weeks, and so I would just like to say welcome to the show in case you are a new viewer or a returning viewer who's like, who are these people? You're really funny, and I love listening, but I have no clue who the hell you are. You're about to learn. Just kidding. Three freelancers. I use that term for myself very loosely, but Nate and Ethan actually cover a lot of things in the Pittsburgh area, high school football. Ethan covers the Pirates once in a while. Nate does RMU hockey. So we kind of know what we're talking about in a way. And in no way should you think that we are of the opinion that we're better than you or smarter than you. That's only Nate. Ethan and I don't think that. But as Nate shakes his head. But anyway, we're just here to have some fun and talk about Pittsburgh sports. We don't think our word's gospel. And that's a very short Spark Note edition of who we are. If you like fun and don't like taking things too seriously, you're in the right place. If you take things seriously and want to come in here and be negative, then go to, never mind, I won't say the name on air. But anyway, guys, thanks for being here. Really excited despite, or maybe I'm just trying to convince myself I'm excited because in addition to the Steelers, we had a hell of a time getting this episode started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ethan's just at a loss for words. You see him aggressively nodding, but he won't contribute. But yeah, a lot to get into tonight. So we'll get right into it right off the bat by starting in a way that will keep our spirits high. It's like the Christmas spirit, but it's Steelers spirit, I guess. That was really corny. Say one nice thing about the Steelers' loss to the 49ers. We have to find something to be happy about. Ethan, what are you happy about after that game?
TJ Watt didn't suck. He had three sacks to begin the year. That's a great start for him. He looked very good. One of the few bright spots overall for the Steelers. Very excited to see where he could take that from now moving forward, especially with the Browns coming in this week. So very excited to see how he looks against the Browns. I know they've lost some pieces on the offensive line for this game. So it's going to be interesting to see how he performs this week after that pretty solid game last week, even though the Steelers came out on the losing end after being annihilated by the Niners.
Nate, what do you got?
Well, I had a feeling this was going to happen because there's not much to say about the Steelers after that game, but I have to go with TJ Watt again, for the solid performance, but also he ties the sack record in Steelers history, 80.5 sacks, ties James Harrison. So it's another positive to take away from not just the 3 sacks that he did have during the game, but he's getting there in the historical ranks in Pittsburgh Steelers history. So to see that, it's a good thing for the Steelers. And the other thing, actually, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to jinx things, but just glad that TJ Watt, had a good game, played the whole game as well. So
I'm going to spice it up a bit. Let's go to special teams. Anthony McFarland looking really good returning those kicks. And he had a lot of chances to return kicks because they were scoring a lot on the other end of the field. But anyone who's listened, whether I'm joking or being serious, knows that I have a special place in my heart for Anthony McFarland just because he was billed as the fastest man in the draft, I think, the year that he was entering the league. And Ethan and I always joked about that. So he's just one of those guys I've always really wanted to see succeed. With the emergence of Jalen Warren and Najee Harris being a first-round pick, I don't think he's going to find himself getting regular snaps, especially in year, 3 or 4 now with this team. I think that window's kind of passed, but I'm excited to see that maybe they find a good special teams role for him. And the way this offense looked, getting good field position to start drives, which is obviously always a good thing, but this offense may really need that field position, those extra 10, 15 yards, based on the way that they looked on Sunday. Ethan, any other thoughts on this 49ers game you want to get into? We want to put this in the past, but anything else you want to take away, mention that we haven't mentioned already or that hasn't been beaten to death over the last 4 days?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, that's why you don't buy into the preseason hype. You just saw it happen, and I didn't want to look too far into it during the preseason, but you saw what can happen when you face off against a very good offensive and defensive team in the Niners, and they have all of the pieces surrounding them to make another deep run into the postseason. It's a big question to see, how Brock Purdy was going to perform this year in year two. You saw he was very confident under center. He really torched the Steelers secondary throughout that game. He looked very, very solid, but that's what happens when you play a good team. I mean, but for the Steelers, you just got to reset and look forward. Got to leave this one in the past, like you said, Nick, and just continue to look onward and move forward after a pretty abysmal start to the season. You got a chance this week with the Cleveland Browns, a divisional opponent. They beat up on the Bengals pretty bad, but like I said, it's week one. There's still a ton of season left. You just got to continue to push forward. And even with the injuries that were sustained over the course of this past week, it's a tough pill to swallow for the Steelers. Just got to continue to move forward, next man up, and try to fill the holes as best you can moving forward.
You listened to a lot of coach BS these past couple months, I think. That sounded like you were just trying to avoid answering a question that the press was asking you about.
What else is there more to say about the game? What else?
Oh,
they got beat pretty bad.
I'm kidding you. I'd just like to point it out as the only one who said they were going to lose. Granted, I said it'd be a 4-point loss with a lot of good things to take away from it, but we don't need to add that little footnote. One thing I think we need to talk about is Kenny Pickett. Now, anyone who's heard me talk privately knows that I think his ceiling's average NFL quarterback. Last week, I mentioned how he was getting compared to Josh Allen without the talent. Look how Josh Allen played on Monday night against the Jets. But yeah, I think Kenny Pickett really had some big red flags in this game. And unfortunately, it was all in the decision-making aspect, which that's not really something that you can just get better at in the matter of a week. And I thought his decision-making was getting much better as last season went on. And through the preseason, Ethan, don't buy into the preseason hype, put it on a shirt. But the interception, the first one, you're throwing a jump ball to Deontay Johnson. The second interception, you're just throwing it to nobody into the void. Missing Deontay Johnson on a slant route. When now we're getting into just bad throws he made. But Deontay Johnson, who hasn't scored in over a year, missing him on a slant route. After the Watt fumble, when they were driving again, they were inside the red zone. Granted, he was kind of on the move running for his life, but you had Freiermuth, I believe it was, breaking, going an out route towards the pylon that he could have hit him. And instead, he zipped it through the end zone to really nobody. There's a lot of things that I saw in this game from Kenny Pickett that really have me concerned. And I'm getting worried now seeing that people like George Pickens are liking ominous tweets and Instagram comments and things, but that's nothing new to Steelers fans or followers. What do we make of Kenny Pickett? Do we think that this was just a bad game against arguably the most talented? There we go. Team in the league, or do we think there's a bigger issue here?
I think it's tough to come off game one. You don't want to buy into the preseason hype, but honestly, they just laid an egg in general, and a lot of that has to do with Pickett. The offensive line also didn't protect him very well either. I mean, 5 sacks, that's not going to help your quarterback either in his confidence. But yeah, he's missing throws that he should be making, some throws that are, in stride for Deontay Johnson, a couple of them. There was almost a third interception by Fred Warner that he dropped. Should have been a pick. So I think there's some concern because you saw what he could do in the preseason. Again, granted, preseason, but to come out and just play the way they did. I mean, they finally put together a drive there at the end of the first half. This is their first down of the game with less than a minute left in the half. I mean, that just can't happen. And I don't know if that's specifically on Pickett. I mean, he missed a lot of throws, but offensively, they just looked poor all around, besides maybe one big Najee Harris run. Other than that, I mean, altogether, offensively, they looked bad. And I don't think this game's one you put on Matt Canada at all. I mean, it has to do more with Pickett. And I think that's a concern moving forward because if he can't respond, if he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, he has to respond against Cleveland. It all comes down to that. If he can't respond and he has another poor performance, then you start to really worry. But I think he has the tools to be an average quarterback, Nick, like you said, at least to be a starting quarterback for a few seasons. But, I mean, as of now, that game, I mean, that's not even an average quarterback just missing some throws. I mean, he looked really bad.
Yeah, I have to agree. He just looked all out of sorts. The whole offensive regime looked all out of whack, from the offensive line to the running backs to the quarterback play. It was just all, they just seemed lost. They didn't seem to know how to respond to getting punched in the mouth. And that's, one of the big things that you wanted to see from this team. How did they react to some adversity? And we didn't see that from Kenny Pickett at all. Like Nate said, it took till the end of the second quarter, I believe, to get a first down in the game.
With
They
the
could not move
sagging back about 10 yards too on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. They couldn't get anything done offensively through those first two quarters, except for that last drive where they were finally on the board. There was nothing that went right for them. And you would think throughout that time, you would be making some adjustments and trying to figure out ways where you can attack this defense. But there was just no answer for this 49er defense. Granted, they are a very, very good defensive front. They had Nick Bosa. They had, they had a talented front, and they had defensive pieces that are very good, and they had a very they have a very talented defense. But seeing how the Steelers offense performed compared to where they were at last year, to where we've seen them upgrade different positions throughout the offseason, where you would think they would take that next step forward in week one, we did not see anything at all from their front. And this was honestly, I believe, the worst I've seen the Steelers offense play, even when Pickett took over the offense in the around the midway point of the 2022 season. It was worse than that. It was worse than when he took over. It was worse than that Buffalo game, because they just could not get anything done with him under center. And yeah, this is not on Matt Canada. There were a lot of things that were done wrong offensively where it could lie on Pickett. And yet still people are blaming Canada for this loss because the offense could not do anything right. And, that was just not the case in this one. So it's all about, how do you respond? Like Nate said, how do you respond against a division rival? This game, it's a game that really matters, especially it's only week 2 in the season, but it still matters because it's a AFC North opponent and you're at home. So it's a big spot where they need to bounce back and they need to show some signs of life offensively.
I'm going to blame Matt Canada a little for calling plays where they were literally going backwards. Not like they went forward and lost yards, but like the ball is literally going backwards. I'll blame him for a few of those plays. I just want to feel how I felt on the first offensive play of the game when Pickett hit Pickens for like a 6-yard gain right off the bat. And I said, here we go, baby. And then they didn't move the ball until the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. But boy, if I could go back to like 105 on Sunday when that play happened, I'd be a much happier person right now. But anyway, there's a chance that things get better. They're just playing a division rival who shut down the highest paid man in the NFL. So there's obviously a chance for things to get better. Pittsburgh playing the Browns Monday Night Football. How do you find anything constructive, anything positive to say about how this team's going to come out and play Cleveland based on what they just did to a team that is more talented than they are?
I think to help Pickett, you do have to establish the run a little bit more. And it's tough because the Browns have shown also another very impressive front led by Myles Garrett. So you're going to have to worry about how, that game will come about because they were able to shut down the Bengals running game as well, keeping them under 100 yards. So if they can establish run, because between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, they only had 9 combined carries. And I think there needs to be more of the run game. And I think that'll help Pickett a little bit if you're running a little bit more on first and second down. If you can get a couple yards and get into those short yardage situations on third down, I think it would help Pickett a little bit more. And also, we didn't see it a whole lot, but Pickett still also has the ability to run. So as long as you get into, a manageable third down situation and start to move the ball down the field, I think that'll be huge for the Steelers. And I think it starts by starting with the run. And Najee Harris finally got that big run towards the end of the first half against the Niners, but you got to get him going a little bit more as well. We didn't see a ton of him. And so I think in order for the pass to start working, you got to have the run a little bit and let the defense, be a little bit more susceptible to the pass as well.
And I think the run defense needs to step up a little bit as well. Last week, I told Ethan, who was at the game, I said, I feel bad for the defense. They've made some really boneheaded plays, the first touchdown, obviously, but they were in a bad spot where they were starting drives on midfield or beyond, and that's a big ask week one to shut down a team with probably the best skill players in the NFL. But then they gave up a 65-yard run for a touchdown. And then I was kind of eating my words. But this is a team that's been kind of shoddy against the run defense a lot. I think of the Seattle game either a year or two ago where they had just ran all over them, and that game haunted me a bit. But I think the run defense is paramount, especially when you have a guy like Nick Chubb, who the Browns somewhat seem like they don't know how to use sometimes. Like he'll just get them downfield, and then they don't want him to run the ball in a key situation. I didn't see much of the Browns-Bengals game because I was too busy throwing bottles at my TV. But I'd like to think that the Steelers will be able to make some improvements run defense-wise. Sorry, we were being told Zoom's going to kick us off soon, and I kind of lost my train of thought. But Ethan, what are your thoughts heading into this game?
There's a lot of things that kind of rub me the wrong way with the injuries. Cam Hayward's out, but it's going to be, how is this defensive front going to step up? Obviously, you still have TJ Watt, but you have some of those younger guys. Ogunjobi is a veteran presence there, but you also got Isaiah Loudermilk and some of those younger guys that the Steelers got out of the draft last year that are still trying to find their role on the defensive front. They need to step up in the absence of Hayward. It's going to be interesting to see how they react in this type of situation in a primetime game and everything like that. So that's going to be crucial for them. And they don't have a lot of time. They got a couple more days, and that's that. They got to step right into it. And I think also, like Nate said, find a little bit more balance. They were throwing the ball way too much. They got to establish the run game and be able to have some consistency on the offensive front. And I think you're going to start to see some of the things that we saw earlier in preseason start to poke out. I'm not going to say they're going to blow the doors off the Browns or anything. Just you need to find some things to build up your confidence moving forward. I think this game's going to be a big game for the Steelers to start to do those things.
All right. You might have more faith than I do. Score prediction time. I was the only one who guessed that they'd lose last week. Just bring that up again. So I'll go first. This is fake arrogance, by the way, to everyone listening who doesn't know me. I'm going to go Ethan go first, actually, because I don't have my thoughts right now yet. Never mind. I take it all back.
21-10 Browns.
Whoa.
I think the Browns come in. I still don't think the Steelers are where they need to be at. I think that defense losing Hayward is going to be a massive blow for the Steelers, and just not enough time to really gel those younger guys together and get them prepared. And also just seeing how the Steelers played last week. I know it's only 1 week, but just how they played and how the offense couldn't get anything to go right. I think it's going to be tough sledding again for the Steelers in week 2. So I think they drop another one, but you still see some improvements from where they were at, but it's just not going to be enough, especially with how the Browns came out in week 1 against the Bengals.
Nate?
Ethan, I'm on the same page as you. I'm going 20-10 Browns. I think, you want to see Kenny Pickett respond, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And I think Deshaun Watson looked just good enough that he can put up some points, and I think the Steelers lose by 10.
I'm going to go with the AFC North score here. And it's funny that I mentioned the run defense needing to be better, and then I didn't mention Cam Hayward's out for 8 weeks. But Nate just looks at me like he's really disappointed the whole time, and I just get a little nervous when I start talking, but that's okay. AFC North score, 19-13 Browns. A lot of field goals, a lot of dirty, gritty football being played at Acrisure Stadium on, I almost said Monday night. Literally had 2 guesses. Yeah, that's a Brown sweep, I'm pretty sure. Who would have thought? But
no.
Oh boy, they could be in trouble. Speaking of trouble, might be a really bad weekend if you're a Pittsburgh football fan. Backyard brawl this weekend. coming off a very brutal loss, very brutal comments in the press from Phil Jurkovec. Nate, what good is there in the Pittsburgh football world right now?
I mean, the only good that can come out of this weekend is if you can beat West Virginia for Pitt, because I mean, big time rivalry, backyard brawl, doesn't get much better. I mean, the game last year was epic. I mean, the way that thing ended was tremendous on the Pitt side, sending West Virginia fans home packing, back down 79. So, but now it's in their territory. It's going to be a hostile crowd. I mean, Pitt also needs a response from their quarterback. Phil Jurkovec looked bad. I mean, probably just as bad as Kenny Pickett. He was 10 for 32, 31.2% pass completion rating. You know, I did some digging. I did not find a singular quarterback performance of 30 plus pass attempts where they had that low of a passing completion in Pitt history. So Jurkovec really played bad and one of the worst performances. The only good thing that came out of his performance is he didn't throw an interception. But the same thing can be said with Pitt compared to the Steelers. They didn't run the ball enough. They have Rodney Hammond, who's arguably their best offensive player, and they didn't give him the ball enough. 6 carries, and they had Daniel Carter and Sebo Flemister also 6 carries. So they just need to do a better job of finding their balance as well. And Jurkovec, same thing, just needs to hit guys, you know, in stride, on the run, needs to do a better job all around. And defensively for Pitt, they played better in the second half for Cincinnati. They started off pretty bad, but they responded well in the second half and limited them. So if they can find a way to play good defense against West Virginia, all they need is Jurkovec to hit a couple passes in the run game to establish itself.
Phil Jurkovec sucked, and then he had the audacity to go out to the media after the game when they asked why, if he heard the fans booing him, and he responded with this classic preppy Pine Richland comment of, "Oh, I don't know why a grown man should be booing." Dude, you're 20-some years old. You're in your 5th year of college. You came back to Pitt after not wanting to go there in the first place, and you played like that against a team that you could have beaten, but you were 10 for 32 passing. You were not good. The fans had every right to boo. They paid for the ticket. Yes, I get they're still kids, but this guy is
Now
how old?
They're paid athletes now.
They're paid athletes now, so it shouldn't matter. How old is Jurkovec? 23, 24 years old now? Like, dude, you're old enough. Get some thicker skin, buddy. Get some thicker skin. Because that, like, you didn't play well. Face the music. You didn't play well. Come back next week with a fire under you and go out against Dub V and play well. Improve upon your game last week. Go into West Virginia. Get a win out for Pitt. And you're all good. But to complain about the fans and all of that, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I couldn't believe it.
It's an all-time Ethan rant right there.
You're welcome. I needed to get that off. I needed to get that off my chest. As someone from Seneca, as a Seneca Valley alum, to see this guy torch Seneca Valley while I was in the band playing alto saxophone back in 2018, to see Jurkovec march all over the Seneca Valley Raiders in next year stadium.
Wow.
To see that and to see him complain, "Oh, the fans were booing me," because you played awful. Grow up and move on.
Phil Jurkovec's got Ethan having Vietnam flashbacks. He broke him.
I'm
absolutely
done.
broke
But
him.
I've been holding that back for the past, I don't know how many days, but when I saw that, when somebody asked him that question and he responded that way, I'm like, oh man, this guy, grow up. You sucked. The fans paid good money to see that game and expected Pitt to win, and you play like that against a team in the River City rivalry. Don't even get me started about the trophy not coming back. I wanted to see that big monstrosity of a trophy back.
Wow.
No, it's not back. But hey, you come in, it's a rivalry renewed. You couldn't get the win. Move on. Next week, you got another big rivalry, an arguably bigger rivalry with West Virginia. Go in there, show up, show out, perform better, and then see how the fans like you. There you go. That's all you have to do, Phil. It's not that hard.
Wow.
I think he left us speechless. Holy crap.
That was intense. I kind of got both points of that argument for the sake of maybe firing up a little more. I get where he's coming from. You know, you're booing a college kid, but at the same time, Ethan, as you said, he's 20-something years old now. This ain't his first rodeo. He's from the area, I'm pretty sure. So you know how Pittsburgh people are. You're not going to get him back on your side by saying, oh, you shouldn't be booing me. You go out there, you shut up, and you put out a great performance next time. You're playing WVU, a team people in Pittsburgh hate. Say, yeah, I didn't play well tonight. That's on me. Be a leader. Then go out against a rival who the blood boils when you even think of WVU and those raccoon hat wearing people down there in West Virginia. You know, go out there and beat the crap out of them. Don't crap on your own fans right after the second game of the season. And it's Rich, the three of us. If you've seen any of us in person, we didn't have the makings of a college athlete, that's for sure. But I mean, I just think it should have been handled much better. But, you know, I have faith that he'll go out and do something special this weekend. Nate, do you have a prediction for us? I won't even insult the people by giving my prediction. Do you have a prediction for us?
Yeah, and for Phil, I mean, he doesn't even have to be great. He just needs to be an average quarterback, and that's what he wasn't against Cincinnati.
Can he pick it?
And he
Nice
wanted to
voice
open up to it. Anyways, he wanted to open up to it. But here's the thing. Last year, West Virginia was this close. Fingertips away from winning that game, basically. This year, I think, in West Virginia, in Morgantown, that place is going to be rocking. Based off the performance from Cincinnati, I don't know if it has it in them. I think they lose 33-21. I think West Virginia is going to be fired up. And also, Neil Brown is on the hot seat. This game is like do or die for him, basically. It's like the Ohio State, Michigan rivalry. We don't get it every year. It's not that big. It doesn't have conference implications, but Neil Brown's on the hot seat, and he can't afford a loss to Pitt.
Good points all around. Anyway, I'm pretty excited because the Pirates hit their win over, and I was really worried that wasn't going to happen for a while. This might be a 72-plus win ball club. That might be short solid them here the way they've been playing. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but damn, did that make me happy. Maybe there was some good to come out of this year after all, despite some of the failed call-ups and struggles that happened. Someone in Ethan's house just turned the light on. There's now a light in that mirror for those watching at home. Keep an eye on the fan cam. Oh, it went out. Anyway, with that in mind, now Ethan's got to go to deck hockey, apparently. It's now time for Nate's first Rod Barajas of the week. I'm going to list off some random things about a Pittsburgh athlete. You're going to give me a guess. I'm going to set a timer on the Zoom call in a second right here, and I'll give you 30 seconds once I get done telling you about this person. All right. If it will let me set the clock, that would be much appreciated.
Is this from any team?
This week's the Steelers. Thanks for saying that. This week is the Steelers. And I added where he went to college, which might be too much information now. I try to make these kind of vague, but we'll see. All right. This man went to Kent State. Go Golden Flashes. He played 20 games for the Steelers. This fact I'm not super positive on because it was right before dinner was ready. And I listened to my wife. So I think it was 20 games he played for the Steelers. Wide receiver, but also did some special teams work. And he played during the 2014 and then the 2015.
Dre Archer.
Whoa. What horrible Rod Barajas of the week etiquette. Ethan, did you have a guess?
Yeah, it was going to be Dree.
Okay,
it was between Dree. It was between Dree. Dree would have been my first guess. Eli Apple would have been the other one.
Now, Nate, how this usually works, I read it and then you both write it down and reveal.
Oh,
but
I didn't know.
I didn't tell you that.
You didn't explain the
You
rules.
both get credit. You have more than Jack got right. It's all good.
There you go.
All good in the hood. You're fine, my friend. This has been Stranded in Pittsburgh. Ethan, do you have a final thought? You seem like you have a lot you want to say.
Phil, show out.
Dear Lord.
Phil, show out this week so the fans don't get all over you again and you'll be happy again. And the Steelers show some improvements.
Wow. Nate, do you have a final thought that can one-up Ethan?
Not necessarily. I agree with a lot of the things there, but I'm going to go Pirates route. I mean, glad they decided not to lose 100 games this year. So good for that. I think if O'Neal Cruz plays all year and a couple of pitchers don't get hurt, you're looking at a team that's chasing down a wild card spot. But glad they didn't lose 100 and they're over their win total.
The WWE and UFC officially merged under the new company called TKO. And I'm really excited to see John Bones Jones and John Cena in a ladder match. That's going to be a hell of a time. Hell, throw Phil Jurkovec in there as the referee. Have it in Pittsburgh. We'll see what happens. And we'll see what happens next week on Stranded in Pittsburgh. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.